position, but I can't.
Hi, everybody.
Woo.
Hello.
Yo.
Thank you all for coming out. As some of you might know, I am doing a new one-man show a month this year, a new hour long. So it's very scary, it's very terrifying. I think that some of them, are gonna be really good. Some of them are gonna be bad. Who knows what this one is gonna be like. So please bear with it. If it isn't good, I promise another one in the future will be. That's all I can offer to you. So sit back, enjoy. Let's cry. There we go. Hi. So, I have depression and anxiety. At least I think I do. Most people do. It's not something that that I've had formally diagnosed with me. Sometimes I just get really sad for no reason. That's all. And I do comedy. And comedy is this kind of amazing thing in that it's the one art form where you're trying to elicit a specific emotion from the audience. You know? All other art forms like movies, plays, TV, sculpture, music, sure, within that there are specific things that are trying to elicit specific emotions, but comedy's the one thing where you're trying to elicit one, laughter. That's the ultimate goal, is if you make the audience laugh.
Stephanie Fedorov.
If you make the audience laugh, you've succeeded. And because I do comedy and because that's pretty much the main goal out of everything, I've decided that I want to try to do the opposite. Trying to create some sort of vulnerability, some sort of safe space of crying. Laughter's so very safe. We can do it in public and people don't have a problem with it. But if you start crying in public, people get uncomfortable because it's something that they're not used to. It's one of the emotions that it just makes us be like, oh no, I have to feel empathy or sympathy in some way, shape, or form. Where in laughter, you don't have to. It's like I can laugh with this, or I cannot. Laughter's a completely positive thing, unless it's at somebody, then you can have problems with it. But yeah, so this show is kind of exploring things that make you cry, and I think crying's great. I've done it. We've all done it. We'll do it. My favorite part of going and seeing a Pixar movie is the moments that I'm going to cry during it. I look forward to that, to kind of this building of pressure that is emotions within your life, and those things that trigger it are that needle that help you cry or help you laugh. It's kind of the same thing. So, what are some things? Everybody here in this room has cried before. When was the last time that you cried?
Oh my god, like yesterday.
What made you cry?
My mom. Just like talking to her.
In what way? What's the actual thing that made you cry?
I was thinking about how she is constantly trying to help me and how that makes me feel like a baby, and then I just cried because I'm a baby.
Because it makes you feel like you're...
Yeah. Like just
Like-
crying because I feel like that's like completing the circle.
What do you, because it makes you feel like you aren't in
like-
control?
Yeah, like sad, destroyed, but also like it with love as well.
Yeah.
Like, mixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you? When was the last time that you cried?
A couple days ago, I kind of I was gonna be attending a friend's memorial and then ended up hosting it. And there were a lot of it was strange because the girl who died, we had a lot of mutual friends and like
Yeah.
some fun experiences together, but we weren't particularly close, and so it didn't even like feel real that she was gone, and yet somehow I was like helping stage this whole platform for everyone else to cry, and I didn't even know how to do it myself until I saw everybody else let loose, and then I'm just like crying in my living room with like 40 people, half of whom I know, but yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And I think pretty necessary. I didn't really know how to miss her, until that happened.
Yeah. And how about you? When was the last time you cried?
Like a week ago.
Why?
I think anything cancer related makes me cry. I lost my uncle who I lived with a couple of years ago to cancer, and I think the 6 months that he was really sick, I had to, in order to survive it, I had to just bury it really deep, and now years later it just bubbles up in weird moments, like weird unexpected moments. So I just had one of those moments.
Yeah. And that's the thing that thing that buries underneath. It's always gonna come back up. So the last time that I cried was a couple days ago, but also the last time I really cried was a couple weeks ago. I just had a bad day. I was feeling so much stress from this work-related thing, and then stuff in my romantic life. I didn't know where it was at, so I was kind of feeling anxiety from that, and things were just bubbling up and boiling up to this place that I just kept finding myself having panic attacks and like kind of weeping throughout the day. And I talked to a friend of mine, and they said, they offered me, hey, how are you doing? Let me just pay for ramen for you to like kind of relax. And I started crying because of that, because I was like, that was so nice, and kind of like hit me in this very specific way that was like so moving and so touching. And yeah, and it was kind of just a repeat of that until I settled out. And I've cried more in the past 2 years than maybe I have in the past 10. I moved out here about 2 years ago from New York, and it was like a big transitional time in my life, career-wise. I turned 30 while I was out here, and that's a big thing, aging, getting older, being closer to the reaper. And it starts making you think about things. Death, the biggest fear of all, the thing that any fear that we have, it kind of can be boiled down to death. And I've had, within the past few months, a couple of experiences with it. People that I knew, and it's weird when somebody not old dies, or somebody that's not a pet. If a grandparent passes away, or an uncle or something, it's like they're older than you. They've been through a lot. It's not necessarily expected, but you do know that if things go right, it is an inevitability. Kind of the same thing with pets. And these people were younger, and it wasn't expected with them. And when that happened, it kind of drummed up these old things. There are 2 instances with people that I've treated within my family that I truly feel bad about. That it haunts me to this day. One of them is my grandfather. So, growing up, my grandfather adored me. He passed away when I was about 8 years old. But he'd always say like, "Oh, I see so much of myself in this kid. Oh, this was totally me when I was small, and I wanted nothing to do with him. I couldn't care less. He was old. He kind of smelled, and he had this scary voice because of all of his years of smoking. It was like this scratchy kind of thing, and all he wanted to do was hang around me, and all I wanted to do was like not. And he got cancer, and when that happened, the thing that I knew that was going to happen when he died is that I was going to get a pocket knife that was his. And that's what I cared about. And I feel incredibly bad about this to this day. Because every time he wanted to hang out with me, I was like, oh, when is this guy gonna go? I'm gonna get this pocket knife. When is this gonna happen? Like, that's all I cared about. The same day that he got his diagnosis that he had lung cancer was the same day that it was grandparents' day at school. This was the 2nd grade, and he was like, there's no way that I'm missing this. So he comes right from being diagnosed to my school, and I'm kind of like standoffish because I'm uncomfortable around him because I'm a stupid little kid, and there's a picture of us. It's like the last good picture of him, and I think about the smile on his face and how happy he was. And I mean, I looked happy in the picture too, but I just remember kind of feeling embarrassed during it. And because I was just this shitty kid that only cared about like comic books and sports cards and a fucking pocket knife. And I never got to meet or truly know this man because I wasn't interested at all. I didn't get to meet the man who, when my uncle's friend came over one time when my parents were when my mom was a kid, my uncle's friend was over. My mom was playing with my aunt and their black friend, and my uncle's friend goes, "Oh, you let Edwards in your house?" And my grandpa hears this and goes, "What did you say?" And then the guy repeats it, and my grandpa picks this kid up and literally throws him out of the house. That's the kind of dude that I didn't meet. And then I didn't get to meet a guy who I just got a bunch of letters from my mom, and he wrote my grandma at least every week, pages and pages of letters, pretty much just describing how much he loved her while he was in the army. And that's the guy that I didn't get to meet. But most of all, I never got to really meet my grandpa because I wasn't interested. And that's what kind of fucking eats me up the most. And I can kind of chalk it up to being like a shitty kid. Because, I mean, kids are shitty when they're younger. They're selfish. But I also was on Ritalin from ages like 5 to 13, and that kind of made me a little hollow. a little cold, and a little forgetful. There's like a lot of chunks of my memory that I don't have anymore that I kind of blame on that, or maybe that's how everybody is, but I don't know, that's what I like to think, that, or not like to think, but it's kind of something that I relate to it. A couple things that I do remember growing up, there were like some silly bits here and there, but I also remember some real sad times. Like, because of this, because I was so kind of focused and cold while I was on this, I was weird, you know? There was a period of time where I didn't have a lot of friends. I remember just holding my dog in my room, crying, wondering why people didn't like me, and thinking, what can I do? And I get it, I was rambunctious. So, you know, a lot of parents didn't want me around their kids, because I drummed them up, I got them excited, but on the other side of that coin, there's a 10-year-old wondering why he didn't get invited to a couple birthday parties and thinking about fucking killing himself and saying, well, that would teach him. I don't know, again, I could blame this medication that I was on, but it could also just be who I am. Or who I was. I have no idea. I do know that it made me kind of a different person than I am, or that I like to be. Because there was a point in time where I stopped taking it at 13, and boom, boy did I have friends after that. So that's the correlation that I saw. And kind of within that realm, and within all the realms, is that my dad. So my dad and my mom got divorced when I was about 10 years old. And he lived with us up until the age of 10. And it was kind of like he didn't. And not much changed after that. But within divorce, people like to talk about it as if it's a bad thing, but I don't think that it's good, especially in this case. I think it's kind of a great thing, because it means something's not right, and the people who are involved in the marriage or relationship are just not meant to be together. So when my parents split, I mean, I reacted very strongly. I found the divorce papers in the mail because I liked to open up the mail when I was a kid. They were like, I don't know, I just found an interest in it. But all of my memories of my dad aren't negative. I have two good ones. And I'll start with the latest, which was about 20 years ago, when I was in the 5th grade. And I remember being called down into the office because, well, I didn't know why. But when I got down there, it was my dad. And he had just stopped by. I guess he had called the principal, and because he wanted to see me and my sister, because he wasn't allowed to have unsupervised visitations because he had drank and then drove us home one time. So it was tough for him to try to get people to come with him to hang out with his kids, as, you know, it likely would be. But I remember this moment because it was just me, him, my sister, and the principal there in the office, and him just saying, hey, I wanted to come by and say that I missed you. And I was standing there going, okay, and breaking down and crying, saying, I miss you too. And that's like the last good thing that I can recall. Because the guy lived in the same town as us, and he didn't really give a shit. He really only cared about the women that he was with, or money, over us. It'll fuck you up. And the second good memory that I would sometimes go with my dad to work. You know, I don't think I was the ideal son in his mind. You know, I was very hyper. I wasn't good at sports. I really liked comic books, and he's this kind of contractor. This dude that masculinity was a big part of his job. So it would be a rarity that I would go with him to work. But when I did, I remember the smell of his truck. It was dirt, metal, clay, and rust, and like worn leather. And we'd always stop off at a convenience store, and I'd either get beef jerky or sunflower seeds and Gatorade or chocolate milk, not mixed together. But just those were generally my go-to options. And then boom, right onto the site where I'd either go play around in the half-finished houses, or I'd stick around on the big machinery with him. And I remember one time we were on his backhoe, and he was operating the thing. And if you guys don't know what a backhoe is, it's kind of like those big shovel machines that you see that's just digging and digging in there. It's got that big, you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So it was that, and we were digging and digging until we hit something. He goes, oh my God, what's this? So then we start digging up a little bit more until we get like a corner of whatever it is, and it's kind of like this big chest looking thing. And he's like, well, let's get out and take a look. So we lift it up, and it's kind of like this treasure chest. It's filled with, at the time, seemed like hundreds of these toys. And he and his buddies had planted it the previous day for him to find. And it's just something that sticks out in my mind. And I think about it, and it's one of my happiest moments of my youth. But it's also sad, because this was the father that I could have had. You know, there were flickers of him that existed, this good man wrapped around all this bad. And I only got to see glimpses, but he was in there. And I guess it's kind of a shame, you know, but it's also good in its own way, because if you were to ask me, under my beliefs of what I think is a good parent, was my dad a good parent? And that would be yes. Because my idea of a good parent by definition is that you left behind a better person than you are. And however you decide to parent, to create that outcome, that's what you do. And maybe it's that he decided by not being there was the best way to have the best outcome for me and my sisters. But I'm a little bit grateful for that because I didn't have to deal with any of his like bad beliefs. He's not a culturally understanding kind of guy, so I think in the end it is kind of a good thing. Another good thing that this guy did is that he got me my first dog, Jessa. Jess is one of my earliest memories. She was an American Eskimo, this kind of like white fluff ball that had more shedding than any animal you could ever imagine. It was like at least once a year in the summertime, our entire living room was kind of covered in white. And she was my best friend, my protector, my confidant. She was always there for me. I remember if I was being chased by neighborhood bullies, I could always jump the fence, and if any of them even thought about coming over to hurt me, she would be there ready to attack. And I had 13 good years with her. She was a good dog, you know? She didn't know how to play fetch or do any tricks, but she could sit on command, and she liked to just play in general. And most of all, she liked to listen. She liked to, I mean, I don't know if she liked to listen, but she did. And she liked to comfort when you were sad and crying in your room. And as the years went by, I remember there was a point in time where she couldn't play anymore, or she just rested a lot. And my mom said, before school one day, I remember this vividly, because the timing was, as my mom's timing always is, very bad. And she says, I think we're gonna have to put the dog down today. And I go, why would you say that before school? You've just ruined the entire day for me. And it didn't matter when she said that. I was gonna have kind of a guarded reaction to it. It wasn't gonna be a positive thing. I was gonna be defensive. I was gonna be upset, because this is my best friend and you're asking me to help end its life? Fuck. That's a lot. But I remember coming home after school and just petting her as she's lying there in her bed, crying as she's breathing, because it had gotten to that point. And when we tried to load her into the car to take her to the vet, she bit me for the first time because of the way that I had been holding her. I didn't mean to. And this person that she had always protected, she had hurt a little bit. And I knew that she didn't mean it, and it's just because of her instincts. Hey, I don't like this. So I tried to position it as best I could so that it didn't hurt her as much, and we got her in the car. And then we got her to the vet, and they asked if I wanted to be in there when it happened, and I said yeah. So they got her on the table, and I put my hand on her cheek. She was laying down, the way that my mom used to do to me and I would do to her. And I saw her pupils get big, and then the light leave her eyes. And I can't look to this day without smiling and tearing up a little bit at the same time. I had mentioned before about two people in my family that I feel extremely bad about the way that I had treated them, and I have two sisters, Janelle and Alina. I grew up mostly with Janelle because Alina was my father's kid from a different mother. But me and my sister Janelle had a sibling rivalry that kind of was bad, to say the least. We were at each other's throat, constantly vying for whatever kind of attention, I don't know. But we'd hit each other, we'd push each other, we'd do like mean shit to one another, but the worst thing that we did was insult each other. And by worst thing that we did, I mean that was the worst that I did. Because I was so focused and so cold, I was an Olympic insulter. Like, that's not me trying to brag or be cool about it. It's just trying to give you kind of the scale. If this was something that I was good at, of cutting somebody down, I really knew how to do it. The thing that you're self-conscious about, I could figure it out very quickly, and I could just scratch at it and make that hole wider. And when we got into our preteens and our teenage years, that's when it got the worst, and that's when I got the worst. Because I went after the one thing that most of the people in the world are kind of self-conscious about, and especially teenage girls, and that is about looks and weight. And boy, I hit that ladder hard at any given moment. And even like things that my sister liked. She at one point, I think she was about 8 years old, started to like the Beatles, and I kind of cut it down. I kind of cut her down for it. I stopped somebody from liking the Beatles. That's how mean I was. That is a task unto itself. But for a very long time, she was going through the same shit that I was with my dad. Well, the only other constant male figure in her life was just cutting her down at every given point in time, when I should have been there to help console her while she was hurting as much as I was. And I know that it's something that I can never take back, the gravity or the effect that I have on it. And anytime she dates like a shitty dude or is having trouble in her life, I can't help but think that some part of it's my fault. And it culminated to this past November. I came home for a cousin's wedding. And me and my cousin, a different cousin, went out to one of the local bars. And my sister ended up showing up. And me and my cousin Johnny had already gotten pretty drunk. And so, with that liquid courage, I went up to her and I decided to do something that I had been putting off for a real long time, which was apologizing and telling her, hey, I'm sorry. We should have been a team. We should have been together on all of this. And all I did at every waking moment was look for reasons to separate us. And I just started breaking down, crying, and telling her that I loved her. And she just hugged me and said, I'm sorry too. And at that point, I can finally say that the war between us had ended. And while I'll never be able to undo any of the things that I've done, I feel a little bit more peace with it. And knowing that at the end of the day, we still love each other. And so with crying, I've kind of like talked about media before in the beginning, and there are tons of movies that I've cried at. All of the Pixar ones. What are some movies that we've cried at?
Toy Story 3. Speaking of Pixar.
Toy Story 3,
Fuck.
yeah.
Fuck.
Click, Adam Sandler, click.
Adam Sandler, click.
Eternal Sunshine.
All right. You don't know? Okay. Anybody else?
This might be lame, but that movie when they remade Les Miserables, I had never seen the story, or I did nothing of the story, so I was watching the whole thing for the first time, so I cried at the end of that.
Great.
So, yeah.
Have you cried at the movie?
I can't think of a specific one right now, but there are a lot.
Yeah.
The majority of them. Yeah.
There's a lot, and within the past 2 years, I've cried during more movies than I can even think. Most movies that I've been watching, I've cried during a little bit. You know, Captain Marvel. I watched Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. That made me cry, which is a real stupid one to cry during. One Fine Day. Up. Coco. Toy Story 2. Toy Story 3. Toy Story. WALL-E. I Am Sam. Precious. The Color Purple. Any movie that has like a shitty dad redeeming himself in some way, shape, or form, that'll always get me. Episodes and segments on the old daytime talk show, Jenny Jones would make me cry a lot. A bunch of episodes of Futurama, countless YouTube videos. But recently I've kind of been tearing down these emotional walls that I've kind of built up throughout the years to kind of let myself feel these things. And I think one of the saddest segments in a film is Toy Story 2. Does anybody remember this movie? There's one section of it where the character Jessie is talking about how her kid had abandoned her. You know, the segment there's Sarah McLachlan music playing in the background. the saddest musical artist to ever exist. And it starts off with her being played with with her child as a kid, and then the kid becoming a teenager and being disinterested, and then the kid becoming like in high school and she gets kicked under the bed, and then the kid going home, coming back from college, like getting stuff to donate, and finding Jessie, and we see Jessie kind of being happy because she feels like she's going to be played with, and then there's this moment of hope within it. You're like, well, maybe, just maybe. And then it cuts to her being left in this box by this donations place, and it really resonates because I feel like we've all felt that before, whether it's socially, whether it's familial, in any capacity, where something is going to, where something was good, and then things kind of get bad, and then we just have this hope of like, well, maybe, just maybe it's gonna be all right. And it's not. And there are two options that we can do. We can either rise above it, or we can let that darkness that we feel from that consume us. And then that happens to people. I know it's almost happened to me a couple of times, but I always feel like at the end of this road that is life, what is going to lead me to a better place? The one where we just focus on this and kind of let it loom and consume us, or the ones where we go, yes, this hurt me, but I'm not going to let it define me. You know? And I know I've kind of focused on bad crying, you know, sad crying, but not all of it's bad. There's that good crying too. You know, I love good crying. Like, have you ever been so happy that you've cried before? It's one of the best things in the world. It's one of my favorite things to do to my mom is, because I know how to trigger it. You can you give her a card, you just call her sometimes in an unexpected way, say a certain thing, and it'll just be like, oh, I'm so happy. And it's nice. It's a real nice feeling for that person and for you that you've cost them this much emotion that it brings it to this point. Because that's what laughter and sadness and crying is. It's this bubbling of emotions that gets to this point where nothing can express how you feel other than this primitive thing, this ha ha ha, or your eyes just tear up. And this is how you relieve the pressure that's built up. And I've had a couple of good crying moments within the past 10 years of my life. The first one being that I can truly remember, and it seems kind of stupid when I say it, but it was in New York. I was about 22. I got on one of UCB's house teams, and it was just something that I had worked towards for years. I dropped out of college to do this. This was one of my main focus points. And I remembered I had gone through kind of a shit time when I had done this audition to get on this. I had just had a breakup. I just had the manager that I was working with tell me that, oh, they're dropping me and that they don't think that I have a future in this business. And I was just depressed and kind of aimless. I was working at a Dave & Buster's in Times Square. And it was bad. So I kind of went in this with nothing to lose, and I did really well. I remember just asking, hey, can I get off the next day? Because I know that's when they were going to announce it. I just wanted to sleep until 2 so that when I woke up, I either got it or I didn't. And I didn't have to deal with all the anticipation and all the anxiety. But I was denied. I couldn't get anybody to cover it. So I had to go into work, and I was just, I couldn't handle it. And I was in my very dead section, nobody sitting in it, and my phone started to ring. So I picked myself up, and I went into the back room, and I looked at my phone, and it was my mom, and I picked up and I said, hey, please don't call me for 24 hours, I love you, goodbye. And I hung up, and I left. And as I was leaving, I was getting another phone call. I was like, God damn it, she's calling me again. So I just went in the back, and I looked, and it was from a number I didn't recognize. And I picked it up. And it was from the artistic director offering me a slot on one of the teams. And I immediately started weeping, saying, thank you so much. And he laughed and said, you're welcome, and hung up. And it kind of felt like, I don't know, I was validated for the first time in my life, something that I really went for, really focused on, I achieved. It wasn't a dream anymore, it was a reality. I'd given up like the normal path, and it had paid off. And it felt really good. The next time that I had cried from happiness was I had this girlfriend in New York that I had seen for a couple of years, and we had broken up. We were broken up for about 8 months, and for about 4 of those 8 months, I was doing everything in my power to kind of get her back. I had gotten us tickets to go see Hamilton, like at the height with the original cast, and because I knew that she couldn't turn it down. There's no and I also got these tickets to this festival. It's like, hey, do you want to do this cool video where we get tickets to this festival? Just any opportunity I had to like get close to her, like, oh, hey, remember you also are in love with me. And I felt like there were like flickers. There was a semblance of me winning her back, and then there was kind of like a really bad week that I had, like kind of a mixture of a bad week. I had gotten sexually assaulted. Then right after that, I got a phone call saying that I was getting in this huge comedy festival that kind of like changed my life a little bit. But then the next day I also got hospitalized for an infection that I had from a bug bite. And kind of all of this culminated into about a week afterwards. I had just gone on a date with this gal, and we went back to her place, and I wake up to a text message from my ex saying, hey, are you free to meet up? I go, I could meet you in like an hour. She goes, why? Are you at another girl's place? And I said, yeah, I am, because I don't lie, and for the better or worse, I just said that. She goes, oh, okay. I go, don't worry, I'll be there. So I took an Uber, said goodbye to my gracious host, and I was out like a gun, right back to my place, because I lived like 5 minutes away, walking distance from my ex, which also made it very difficult. And we met up at this coffee shop that was in between both of us. She goes, I've been thinking about it, and I was thinking that I'd like to get back together. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I couldn't handle it. It was a lot, and it was good. I felt amazing. I'd done it. I'd won back this girl that I had loved, and I was like, I'm not gonna screw it up this time. And I kind of fell into some of the same traps I did before, and before I could fix that, I was like, I'm moving out to LA. And so we broke up. And she's married now. She's very happy, and I'm so happy for her because she's a good friend. But that was another real happy moment in my life. Another one that I had was about 2 months ago, when I had started seeing this girl that I'm kind of seeing now. I just got out of the shower and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I just started weeping because I was so happy that I know this person. And I've never felt that before, and it makes me feel optimistic. It makes me feel good. And I know that there's going to be cries in the future. You know, the worst things that have ever happened to me haven't happened yet. The people that I love are gonna die. More of them. A lot more of them. Like, if you're lucky, you get to outlive the people you love, which is a fucked up thing. But also, the best cries that I'm ever gonna have, I haven't had yet. I mean, I plan on having kids, and I know I'm gonna cry as soon as they're born. And I plan on getting married, and I know I'm gonna cry. Oh man, when I get married, I don't know how my future wife is gonna react to how much I'm gonna be weeping during that. But I look forward to it. Because, yeah, crying makes people uncomfortable, but it also makes people feel good. So I look forward to all of my future cries, the good and the bad. Thank you guys so much. This has been our cry.